skipped a few chapters from last Thursday, but they are still available, just in case you were expecting next chapters in here, if that makes sense. Anyway, chapter 100, Leg and Arm. Whatever that means. The Pequod of Nantucket meets the Samuel Enderby of London. Ship ahoy! Hast seen the white whale? So cried Ahab. Ishmael. Close. They call me Ishmael. Yeah. So cried Ahab, once more hailing his ship. Oh, let me just check something. Right. Okay, try again. Ship ahoy! Hast seen the white whale? So cried Ahab, once more hailing a ship, showing English colours bearing down the stern. Trumpet to mouth, the old man was standing in his hoisted quarter-boat, his ivory leg plainly revealed to the stranger captain, who was carelessly reclining in his own boat's bow. He was a darkly tanned, burly, good-natured, fine-looking man, of 60 or thereabouts, dressed in a spacious roundabout that hung around him in festoons of blue pilot cloth, and one empty arm of this jacket streamed behind him like the embroidered arm of a hussar's surcoat. I wonder what a roundabout is. Haven't heard that term in reference to clothing. There you go. A roundabout. Hast seen the white whale? See you this? And withdrawing from the folds he had hidden in it, he held up a white arm of sperm whale bone, terminating in a wooden head like a mallet. Man my boat! Cried Ahab impetuously, and tossing about the oars near him. Stand by to lower! In less than a minute, without quitting his little craft, he and his crew were dropped to the water and were soon alongside the stranger. But here a curious difficulty presented itself. In the excitement of the moment, Ahab had forgotten that since the loss of his leg, he had never once stepped on board of any vessel at sea but his own. And then it was always by an ingenious and very handy mechanical contrivance particular to the Pequod, and a thing not to be raised and shipped in any other vessel at a moment's warning. Now, it is no very easy matter for anybody, except those who are most hourly used to it, like whalemen, to clamber up a ship's side from a boat on the open seas, for the great swells now lift the boat high up towards the bulwarks, and then instantaneously drop it halfway down to the kelson. So deprived of one leg, and this strange ship, of course, being altogether unsupplied with a kindly invention, Ahab now found himself abjectly reduced to a clumsy landsman again, hopelessly eyeing the uncertain, changeful height he could hardly hope to attain. It has before been hinted, perhaps, that every little untoward circumstance that befell him, and with indirectly sprang from his luckless mishap, almost invariably irritated or exasperated Ahab. And then I've known people like that. And in the present instance, all this was heightened by the sight of the two officers of the strange ship, leaning over the side by the perpendicular ladder of nailed cleats there, and swinging towards him a pair of tastefully ornamental man-robes. Have you ever had a tastefully ornamented man-robe? And swinging, at first they did not seem to bethink them that a one-legged man must be too much of a cripple to use their sea banisters. But this awkwardness only lasted a minute, because the strange captain, observing at a glance how affairs stood, cried out, I see, avast heaving there, jump boys, and swing the cutting tackle. As good luck would have it, they have had a whale alongside a day or two previous, and the great tackles were still aloft in their massive carved blubber hook, now clean and dry, was still attached to the end. This was quickly lowered to Ahab, who at once, comprehending it all, bit his solitary thigh into the curve, slid his solitary thigh into the curve of the hook. It was like sitting in the fluke of an anchor, or the crotch of an apple tree. And then, given the word, held himself fast, and at the same time also helped to hoist his own weight by pulling hand over hand upon one of the running parts of the tackle. Soon he was carefully swung inside the high bulwarks and gently landed upon the captain head. Your captain, I should say. the captain had. With his ivory arm frankly thrust forth in welcome, the other captain advanced, and Ahab, putting out his ivory leg and crossing the ivory arm like two swordfish blades, cried out in his walrus way, "Aye, aye, hearty. Let us shake bones together, an arm and a leg. An arm that never did shrink, you see that a leg that never can run. Where where did where did see thou see that white whale? How long ago?" "The white whale," I'll put on an English accent here, shall I? "The white whale," said the Englishman, pointing his heavy arm towards the east, and taking a rueful sight along it as if it had been a telescope. "There. I saw him on the line last season." "And he took that arm off, did he?" Said Ahab, now sliding down from the capstan and resting on the Englishman's shoulder as he did so. "Aye, he was the cause of it at least, and that leg too." "Spin me the yarn," said Ahab. "How was it?" "It was the first time in my life that I ever cruised on the line," began the Englishman. "I was ignorant of the white whale at the time. But one day we lowered for a pod of 4 or 5 whales, and my boat fastened to one of them, a regular circus horse he was too, that went milling and milling round so that my boat's crew could only trim dish by sitting on their sterns on the outer gunwale. Presently, up reaches from the bottom of the sea a bouncing great whale with a milky white head and hump, all crow's feet and wrinkles." "It was he! It was he!" cried Ahab, suddenly letting out his suspended breath. "And harpoons sticking in near his starboard fin." "Aye, aye, they were my irons," cried Ahab exultingly. "But go on." "Give me a chance, then," said the Englishman, with good-humouredly. "Well, this old great-grandfather, with the white head and hump, runs all afoam into the pod, and goes to snapping furiously at my fast line." "Aye, I see, you wanted to part it, free the fast fish, an old trick, I know him." "How it was exactly," continued the one-armed commander, "I do not know, but in biting the line, it got foul of his teeth. Caught there somehow, but we didn't know it then, so that when we afterwards pulled on the line, bounce we came plump onto his hump, instead of the other whales that went off to the windward all fluking. Seeing how matters stood, and what a noble great whale it was, the noblest and biggest I ever saw, sir, in my life, I resolved to capture him, spite of the boiling rage he seemed to be in. And thinking the haphazard line would get loose, or the tooth that was tangled might draw, for I have a devil of a boat's crew for a pull on a white line. Seeing in all this, I say, I jumped into my first mate's boat, Mr. Mounttop here. By the way, Captain Mounttop, the captain. I say, I jumped into Mounttop's boat, which you see was gunwale and gunwale with mine. Then, and snatching the first harpoon, let this old great-grandfather have it. But Lord, look you, sir, hearts and souls alive, man. The next instant, in a jiff, I was blind as a bat. Both eyes out, all befogged and bedeadened with black foam. The whale's tail looming straight up out of it, perpendicular in the air, and a marble steeple. No use starting all then, but as I was groping at midday with a blinding sun, all crown jewels, as I was groping, I say, after the second iron to toss it overboard, down comes the tail, like a Lima tower, cutting my boat in two, leaving each half in splinters, and flicks first, the white hump back through the wreck as though it was all chips. We struck out. To escape his terrible flailings, I seized hold of my harpoon pole, sticking in him for a moment clung to that like a sucking fish. But a combing sea dashed me off, and at the same instant the fish, taking one good dart forward, went down like a flash, and the barb of that caused the second iron towing along near me caught me here, clapping his hand just below his shoulder. Yes, caught me here. I say, and bore me down to hell's flames. I was thinking then, when all of a sudden, thank the good God, the barb ripped its way along the flesh, clear to the whole length of my arm, came out nigh my wrist, and up I floated. And that, gentleman, there will tell you the rest. By the way, Captain, Dr. Bunger, ship sergeant, Bunger, my lad, Captain. Now, Bunger, boy, spin your part of the yarn. Bunger's a good name. The professional gentleman, thus familiarly pointed out, I'd been all the time standing near them, with nothing specific visible to denote his gentlemanly rank on board. His face was an exceedingly round but sober one. He was dressed in faded blue woolen frock or shirt and patched trousers, and had thus far been dividing his attention between a marlin spike he held in one hand and a pillbox held in the other, occasionally casting a critical glance at the ivory limbs of the two crippled captains. But his superior's introduction of him to Ahab, he politely bowed, and straightway went on to do his captain's bidding. "It was a shocking bad wound," began the whale surgeon, "and taking my advice, Captain Boomer here stood our old Sammy. Samuel Enderby is the name of my ship," interrupted the one-armed captain, addressing Ahab. "Go on, boy." "Stood our old Sammy off to the northward to get out of the blazing hot weather there on the line. But it was no use. I did all I could. Sat up with him nights. Was very severe with him in the matter of diet." "Oh, very severe," chimed in the patient himself, then suddenly altering his voice. "Drinking hot rum toddies with me every night till he couldn't see to put on his bandages and send me to bed, half seas over about 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh, ye stars! He sat up with me indeed, and was very severe in my diet. Oh, a great washer, and very dietetically severe is Dr. Bunger. Bunger, you dog, laugh out, why don't you? You know you're a precious jolly rascal. But have a head, boy. I'd rather be killed by you than kept alive by any other man." "My captain, you must have ere this perceived respected, sir," says the imperturbable, godly-looking Bunger, slightly bowing to Ahab, "is apt to be facetious at times. He spins us many clever yarns of the sort. But I may as well say, en passant, as the French remark, that I myself, that is to say, Jack Bunger, late of the reverend clergy, am a strict total abstinence man. I never drink." "Water!" cried the captain. "He never drinks it. It's a sort of fits to him. Fresh water throws him to hydrophobia. But go on with the art story." "Yes, I may as well," said the sergeant coolly. "I was about observing, sir, before Captain Boomer's facetious interruption, that spite of my best and severest endeavours, the wound kept getting worse and worse. The truth was, sir, it was an ugly gaping wound as surgeon ever saw, more than 2 feet and several inches long. I measured it with the lead line. In short, it grew black. I knew what was threatened, and off it came. But I had no hand in shipping that ivory arm there. The thing is, against all rule," pointing at it with his marlin spike, "that is the captain's work, not mine. He ordered the carpenter to make it. He had that club hammer there put to the end to knock someone's brains out with, I suppose, as he tried to mince one. He flies into diabolical passion sometimes. To see his dent, sir, removing his hat and brushing it against his hair, and exposing a bowl-like cavity in his skull, but which bore not the slightest scarry trace, or any token of having been a wound. Well, the captain there will tell you that came here. He knows." "No, I don't," said the captain. "But his mother did. He was born with it. Oh, you solemn rogue, you Bunger. Was there ever such another Bunger in the watery world? Bunger, when you die, you ought to die in a pickle, you dog. You should be preserved for future ages, you rascal." I like these two, don't you? "What became of the white whale?" now cried Ahab, who thus far had been impatiently listening to this byplay between the two Englishmen. "Oh," cried the one-eyed captain. "Oh, yes. Well, after he sounded, we didn't see him again for some time. In fact, as I before hinted, he didn't then know what whale it was that had even served me such a trick, till some time afterwards, when coming back to the line, we heard about Moby Dick, as some call him, and then I knew it was he." "Didst thou cross his wake again?" "Twice, but could not fasten. Didn't want to try. Ain't one limb enough. What should I do with the other arm? I'm thinking Moby Dick doesn't bite so much as he swallows." "Well then," interrupted Bunger, "give him your left arm for a bait to get the right. Do you know, gentlemen," very gravely and mathematically bowing to each captain in succession, "do you know, gentlemen, that the digestive organs of the whale are so inscrutably constructed by divine providence that it is quite impossible for him to completely digest a man's arm? And he knows it too, so that what you take for the white whale's malice is only his awkwardness. For he never means to swallow a single limb, he only thinks to terrify by feints. But sometimes he is like the old juggling fellow, formerly a patient of mine in Ceylon, that making believe swallowed jackknives once upon a time, let one drop into him in good earnest, and there it stayed for 12 months or more when I gave him an emetic, and he heaved it up in small tacks, you see. No possible way for him to digest that jackknife and fully incorporate it into his general bodily system. Yes, Captain Boomer, you are quick enough about it. If you have upon one arm for the sake of the privilege of giving decent burial to the other, why in that case the arm is yours. Only let the whale have another chance at you shortly. That's all. No, thank you, Bunger, said the English captain. He's welcome to the arm he has, since I can't help it, and didn't know him then, but not to another one. No more white whales for me. I've lowered for him once, and that has satisfied me. There would be great glory in killing him, I know that, and there is a shipload of precious sperm in him. But, Harpy, he's best left alone, don't you think so, Captain? That's going to be Ivory Leg. He is, but he will still be hunted for all that. What is best, let alone that accursed thing, is not always what least allures. He's all a magnet. How long since thou sawest him last? Which way heading? Bless my soul, and curse the foul fiends, cried Bunger, stoopingly walking round Ahab, and like a dog, strangely snuffling. This man's blood! Bring the thermometer! It's at boiling point. His pulse makes the planks beat. Sir! Taking a lancet from her pocket and drawing near to Ahab's arm. Avast! Roared Ahab, dashing him against the bulwarks. Man the boat! Which way heading? Good God! Cried the English captain, to whom the question was put. What's the matter? He was heading east, I think. Is your captain crazy? Whispered Fadala. But Fadala, putting a finger on his lip, slid over the bulwarks to take the boat's steering oar, and Ahab, swinging the cutting tackle towards him, commanded the ship's sailors to stand by to lower. In a minute, he was standing in the boat's stern, and the Manila men were springing to their oars. In vain the English captain hailed him. With back to the stranger's ship, and face set like a flint to his own, Ahab stood upright till alongside of the Pequod. Chapter. 5 pages. Yeah, we'll read the next one as well. Chapter 101. So Ahab knows which way Moby Dick was heading and has set off in pursuit. But I did like those two, the captain and Bunger. I thought they were amusing. Chapter 101, The Decanter. Ere the English ship fades from sight, be it set down here that she hails from London and was named after the late Samuel Enderby, merchant of that city. The original of the famous whaling house of Enderby and Sons, a house in which my poor whaleman's opinion comes not far behind the united royal houses of the Tudors and Bourbons, in point of real historical interest. How long prior to the year of our Lord 1775 this great whaling house was in existence, my numerous fish documents do not make plain. But in that year, 1775, it fitted out the first English ships that ever regularly hunted the sperm whale. For though for some score of years previous, ever since 1726, our valiant coffins and maces of Nantucket and the Vineyard hardened large fleets pursued the Leviathan, but not only in the North and South Atlantic, but only in the North and South Atlantic, not elsewhere. Be it distinctly recorded here that the Nantucketers were the first among mankind to harpoon with civilized steel the great sperm whale, and for half a century they were the only people of the whole globe who harpooned him. Charge of being of the vigorous Enderby's, boldly rounded the Cape Horn, and she was the first among the nations to lower a whaleboat of any sort into the Great South Sea. The voyage was a skilful and lucky one, and returning to her berth, with her hold full of the precious sperm, the Amelia's example was soon followed by other ships, English and American, and thus the vast sperm whale grounds of the Pacific were thrown open. But not content with this good deed, the indefatigable house again bestirred itself. Samuel and all his sons, how many their mother only knows, and under their immediate auspices, and partly, I think at their expense, the British government was induced to send the sloop of war Rattler on a whaling voyage of discovery into the South Sea. Commanded by a naval coast captain, the Rattler made a rattling voyage of it, and did some service. How much does not appear. But this is not all. In 1819, the same house fitted out a discovery whale ship of their own to go on a tasting cruise to the remote waters of Japan. That ship, well called the Siren, made a noble experimental cruise, and it was thus the great Japanese whaling ground first became generally known. The Siren, in this famous voyage, was commanded by a Captain Coffin, Nantucket. All honour to the Enderbys, therefore, whose house I think exists to the present day, though doubtless the original Samuel must long ago have slipped his cable for the great South Sea of the other world. The ship named after him was worthy of the honour, being a very fast sailor and a noble craft every way. I boarded her once at midnight somewhere off the Patagonian coast and drank good flip down in the forecastle. It was a fine gam we had, and they were all trumps, every soul on board. A short life to them, and a jolly time. And that fine gam I had, very long after old Ahab touched her planks with his ivory heel. It reminds me of the noble, solid Saxon hospitality of that ship, and may my person forget me, and the devil remember me, if I ever lose sight of it. Flip, did I say we had flip? Yes, and we flipped it at the rate of 10 gallons the hour. And when the squall came, for its squall there off the first squally off there by Patagonia, and all hands, visitors and all, were called to reef topsails. We were so top heavy that we had to swing each other aloft in bowlines, and we ignorantly furled the skirts of our jackets into the sails, so that we hung there, reefed fast in the howling gale, a warning example to all drunken tars. However, the mast did not go overboard, and by we scrambled down, so sober they had to pass the flip again, through the savage salt spray bursting down the forecastle scuttle, rather too much diluted and pickled to my taste. The beef was fine, tough, but with body in it. They say it was bull beef, others that it was dromedary beef, but I do not know for certain how that was. They had dumplings too, small but substantial, symmetrically globular and indestructible dumplings. I fancied that you could feel them and roll them about in you after they were swallowed. If you stooped too far forward, you risked their pitching out of you like billiard balls. This bread, but that couldn't be helped. Besides, it was anti-scorbutic. In short, the bread contained only fresh fare they had. But the forecastle was not very light, and it was very easy to step over in a dark corner when you ate it. But all in all, taking her from truck to helm, considering the dimensions of the cook's boilers, including his own live parchment boilers, fore and aft, I say, the Samuel Enderby was a jolly ship, of good fare and plenty, fine flip and strong, crack fellows all, and capital from boot heels to hat band. But why was it, think ye, that the Samuel Enderby, and some other English whalers I know of, not all though, were such famous hospitable ships that passed round the beef and the bread and the can and the joke, and were not soon weary of eating and drinking and laughing? I will tell you, the abounding good cheer of these English whalers is matter for historical research. Nor have I been at all sparing of historical whaling research when it seemed needed. The English were preceded in whale fishery by the Hollanders, Zealanders, and Danes, from whom they derived many terms still extant in the fishery. And what is yet more, their old fat fashions, touching plenty to eat and drink. For a general thing, the English merchant ship skims her crew, but not so the English whaler. Hence, in the English, this thing of whaling good cheer is not normal and natural, but incidental and particular, and therefore must have some special origin, which is here pointed out and will be still further elucidated. During my researches in the Leviathanic histories, I stumbled upon an ancient Dutch volume, which, by the musty whaling smell of it, I knew must be about whalers. The title was Dan Cooperman, wherefore I concluded that this must be an invaluable memoir of some Amsterdam cooper in the fishery, as every whale ship must carry its cooper. I was reinforced in this opinion by seeing that it was the production of one Fitz Schwackhammer. But my friend Dr. Snodhead, a very learned man, professor of Low Dutch and High German in the College of Santa Claus of St. Paul's, to whom I handed the wire for translation, given him a box of sperm counters for his trouble. This same Dr. Snothead, so soon as he spied the book, assured me that Dan Cooperman did not mean the Cooper, but the merchant. In short, this ancient and learned Low Dutch book treated of the commerce of Holland, and among other subjects, contained a very interesting account of its whale fishery. And in this chapter, it was headed Schmeer, or Fat. That I found a long, detailed list of the outfits for the larders and cellar of 180 sail of Dutch whalemen, for which list, as translated by Dr. Snothead, I transcribed the following. 400,000 pounds of beef, 60,000 pounds of Friesland pork, 150,000 pounds of stockfish, 550,000 pounds of biscuit, 72,000 pounds of soft bread, 2,800 firkins of butter, 20,000 pounds Texel and Leyden cheese, 144,000 pounds of cheese, probably an inferior article, 550 anchors of Geneva, 10,800 barrels of beer. Most statistical tables are partingly dry in this reading. Not so the present case, however, where the reader is flooded with whole pipes, barrels, quarts, and gills of good gin and good cheer. At this time, I devoted 3 days to the studious digestion of all this beer, beef, and bread, during which many profound thoughts were incidentally suggested to me, capable of a transcendental and platonic application. And furthermore, I compiled supplementary tables of my own, touching the probable quantities of stockfish, etc., consumed by every Low Dutch harpooner in the ancient Greenland and Spitzbergen whale fishery. In the first place, the amount of butter and Texel and Leyden cheese consumed seems amazing. I impute it, though to their naturally unctuous natures, being rendered still more unctuous by the nature of their vocation, and especially by the pursuing their game in those frigid polar seas. Account number 6992. And on the very coast of their Esquimaux country, where the convivial natives pledge each other in bunkers of train oil. The quantity of beer, too, is very large. 10,800 barrels. Now, as those polar fisheries could only be prosecuted in the short summer of that climate, so the whole cruise of one of those Dutch whalemen, including the short voyage to and from the Spitzbergen area, did not exceed 3 months, say, and reckoning 30 men to each of their fleet of 180 sail, we have 5,400 Low Dutch seamen in all. Therefore, I say we have precisely 2 barrels of beer per man for a 12 weeks allowance. Exclusive of this fair proportion of that 550 anchors of gin. Now, whether these gin and beer harpooners, so fuddled as one might fancy them to have been, were the right sort of men to stand up in a boat's head and take good aim at flying whales, this would seem somewhat improbable. Yet they did aim at them and hit them too, but this was very far north. Be it remembered where beer agrees well with the Constitution. Upon the equator, in our southern fishery, beer would be apt to make the harpooner sleepy at the masthead and boozy in his boat, and grievous loss might ensure to Nantucket and New Bedford. But nowhere. Enough has been said to show that the old Dutch whalers of 2 or 3 centuries ago were high livers, and that the English whalers have not neglected so excellent an example. For ere say they, when cruising in an empty ship, if you can get nothing better out of the world, get a good dinner out of it at least. And this empties the decanter. Yeah, there you go. So that's chapter 101. 102. We'll leave chapter 102 for next time, I think. Another good glug of hot chocolate. So we're well on our way now to finding the white whale, I reckon. Can't be long now, surely can't be long now. But I'm still very much enjoying it. Like I say, I'm really loving the language, the way that it's written. It's quite beautifully done. All right, so don't forget, I'm in here in the Cloud House Cafe reading Moby Dick every Thursday afternoon, having lunch and then reading. So make sure you're following me here. If I type send chat if I show you file dot link slash 9630. Right, so that is bio.link slash A9630. Follow me on all the different things that you find there, including apps. And I will see you next week for the next few chapters. We'll probably get more than one chapter in next week, I reckon. So make sure you're following me, and I will see you next week. I'll also see you tonight, of course, for the phone box quiz, midnight my time, and whatever else I do before next week. Hast thou seen a white whale? So, not yet, we haven't. Not yet, but we know he's headed east, so we know which way to go. Yes. So I shall see you again next week for the next few chapters of Moby Dick. Thank you for watching. See you next time. See you, everyone. Have a nice week. Bye-bye.